Namaste everyone, welcome to an update here live from Uluru. Today is the 22nd of the 12th, 2020. Greg here, and I'm joined with the incredible Chris. So most of you will know or recognise Chris as one of our facilitators here at My Health from, in particular, our Healers program. So Chris is an expert in Native American rituals and all things magical. Energy work. So there's a reason that Chris and I are giving you an update today. Chris and I took part in the Cosmic Consciousness conference event last night. There were multiple events that would have happened around here. We could feel it. I ran into a couple of strangers, a couple of people during my walks and meditations yesterday in preparation for Solstice and Magic Box. Everyone knew about it. Everyone was talking about different groups. And then, of course, we've got you beautiful people from the My Health tribe and beyond who were doing your own meditations, classes. Even I could tap into your energy last night just at home, outside, with your children, with your animals, with your plants. It was a big night.
Huge.
Where do we start? So we'll give you a little bit of the logistics, because I think for some of you, obviously you all felt the energy. You all know that we're here and we've arrived. We've integrated, or we're about to integrate into the age of Aquarius and into fifth dimensional living. But I think let's give you just a quick update of the logistics, because for those of you who weren't in the matrix and the physical hologram here at Uluru with us, there was something almost covert about last night. Starting with the fact that up until, we were getting close, an hour and a half prior to the time that was set for the Magic Box opening, which had been revised, and we'll talk about that why.
Yes.
We, as a group, a big group, still didn't know exactly where we were going or what we were doing. So then we were piled into buses, and I'll let Chris take over, because that was an interesting trip.
Yes, so when we all arrived at our meeting point to head out to Uluru, which we actually did do, there was a situation where we needed to connect with Uluru, and we were only a kilometre or two away at that particular point. And I think that was a very important part of the process last night, where we really needed to resonate, let her know that we're here, that we've come with good intention, and we're part of the process. So from that point, it was all about you and us collectively getting together and creating this huge wave of energy right across the span of this globe. And that was all done in sacred areas, sacred spots, whether that was somewhere down the beach for you guys, or in the woods, or you created a sacred area. It was the same for us. We created a sacred spot, and there was some beautiful meditations that were going on prior to that. Our lovely friend Stephen Evan Strong, who worked so hard to get to this point, had created some of the most powerful rocks that the world has ever known or will ever know as part of our meditation circle that was collected from every corner of the globe. They were all activated the day before. Didgeridoo players, magic instruments that were everywhere. And the part of it which still resonates with me, and I still get goosebumps thinking about it, is that once we had set our focus and we were ready to go, nature gave us the most beautiful gift that you can ever imagine. And it was kind of like a green light for me. It was like switch on, the time is now. And we just had this magnificent flock of galahs and birds that flew straight over the top of our meditation area.
And that was
all
at
in song.
So that was at exactly 7:28.
Correct.
Uluru time last night. So we know that the time of Magic Box was 7:32. That can be confirmed. That was the time that it burst open, or at least began to open. It activated to open.
Yeah.
But as Chris is saying, the galahs, which in the original people stories in Dreamtime culture, they indicate almost an activation or the commencement of a sacred ritual starting. So I mean, you can't make that up. That just happened. We were silent for quite a period of time prior. But at 7:28 p.m, Steve said, "This is it. It's begun." He had ways of communicating with the elders which weren't shared with us, and that's fine. But we knew at 7:28 this was the time to go to ground, and immediately the Galahs came. They came from, I think, east to west.
They did.
And it was, look, the whole night was goosebumps, but that was next level in terms of goosebumps for everyone. We all had our eyes closed, but we could read each other's minds at this point. We were connected to the earth and all of you, but hearing that huge swarm of, I'm assuming huge, we don't know how many there were, these beautiful flock of Galahs, it was incredible.
Absolutely. And I think from there, it was just the most perfect unison of people really connecting and honouring the situation that they were in at that point. And there was no breaking of consciousness, energy. It was the most majestic feeling that I've ever had in my time on this planet. And everyone was there with a purpose. And firstly, before we go any further, we want to thank you out there too for your magnificent efforts as well, because we couldn't have done this without everyone being on board. And we felt you here, and I'm sure that you felt us as well. So thank you as well. So moving on from what we felt through that process, I mean, everyone will have their own interpretations because it's an individual feeling that you'll have and the images that you'll see. But I think, as Greg and I will probably agree to the most, was that the main message coming through is the transformation of the old male regime and the old masculine energy that has been ruling this planet for such a long, long time. It's over. The transformation has begun. And as males that were there, it felt beautiful, it felt right, it felt majestic. And to hand over that mantle and do it with peace and love and know that it's going to a gracious place was probably the most uplifting feeling that I've had, because it's time now for a new world, a new set of ways that we conduct ourselves and honour ourselves and love each other. And as we know, if you've done research through tribalism and history, that the women hold the sacred key. They are the ones to take us through to the next part of the journey, and I couldn't think of a better way to do it last night. So do you want to elaborate any more on the male transformation, Greg?
I'll go back just a little bit, just checking that you can hear us, guys, because I know it's a bit windy, so I'm just moving the mic around a bit. For me, leading up to even getting to the sacred site was so interesting, because we were on 4 buses, and the buses took us on a very convoluted and almost confusing path to get to a location which we won't share, but it wasn't particularly hidden. It was more that, at least from our understanding, there was an element of, as I said before, covert operations in place. So I won't elaborate on that, but I'm sure you can understand why we wanted to be left alone. It was very important for Steve, but there's no words to explain the importance to Steve and the rest of us of the ceremony, but we could not be interrupted. And there is a lot happening. There was a lot happening even yesterday at the resort. There was certain people who were being asked to stay in their rooms. There were certain people who were being called and followed up to make sure that they'd done, things that they had to do according to the theatrics that were occurring. So we couldn't have any of that playing out. So I believe that there was an element of almost privacy, secrecy, and this was a serious operation. It wasn't a group of spiritual people who were just, let's just go find somewhere to sit down. This had been very carefully planned, very carefully thought out. Steve knew exactly where we were sitting, why we were there, which way the rocks were facing. Chris already mentioned the rocks. There were 2 rocks in particular that really resonated with us, a masculine and a feminine. Steve said these are the most important rocks on the surface of the earth, which we felt. There were other spiritual rocks and tools there, which I won't discuss because I think some of them are secret or private, but there was some pretty incredible pieces of the puzzle that we were sitting in front of last night. Okay, so then moving into the, as Chris was saying, moving into the actual ceremony, I have already shared, and I know so many of you have watched it, that my preparation meditation, which I channeled here at Uluru prior yesterday afternoon, what kept coming through the channel was that this is not about sending love to Uluru, and we wanted to make that clear. And a lot of yogis, that's what we believed, because we're loving beings and we're empathetic. We just want to say, oh, well, we'll just send all of our love somewhere else. It wasn't about that. This was about embracing and breaking down, integrating all of our own trauma and sending love from us as active loving beings, 100% love, into the earth, and Uluru would pick up on that. Now, if there was any, and Steve has said this, if you've listened to the podcast on My Health World, if there was any doubt, self-doubt, and negative emotions, fear, guilt, shame, remaining in the physical grid, there would not be enough activation. So it wasn't about going, well, I'm not happy at the moment, but I know I've got to do this. I'll send love, and then later on I'll be happier because we'll be active. It wasn't about that at all. So prior to, there was moments of breaking down, crying while we were sitting in these sacred circles. There was some beautiful chanting, singing, a guided meditation that helped us, because we were feeling trauma not just from us, but that was coming through the earth. And as Chris had mentioned, this is actually, it was all masculine trauma. So we know as spiritual beings that the male-female energy has been out. Masculine has been in a destructive mode when we look at drought, famine, earthquakes, tsunamis from an environmental perspective. When we look at war, murder, greed, and the disobedience of any type of yamas and niyamas from a yogic perspective, but any type of love to Mother Earth. So that has been out. What's interesting last night is that a lot of the male energy, and in some ways, yes, that means men, Chris and myself included, we were the ones who I believe were conducting and going through quite a transformational, cathartic release. There were men lying on the ground, there were men crying, there were men sobbing, there were men doing different breathing techniques, Reiki, but intense Reiki, that you could see energy coming out of their hands. The time for women, for the female energy, was more about feeling a sense of release, knowing that they no longer have to suffer and they no longer have to witness the destruction. I believe that this helped the box to open simply because the box was being closed from pressure, from trauma that was being sent through the earth, the ley lines to Uluru. Once this trauma dissolved, once Uluru heard the vibration, and if you've seen a graph of the Schumann resonance last night, I want you to have a look at it. It's there, it's on the internet, it's being shared. But if you look at the resonances, the geographical heartbeat of the earth and exactly what happened at 7:32, it's mind-blowing, off the charts last night. So Uluru felt it, the trauma dissolved, the box opened. We won't go into too much more detail in terms of what happened during the ceremony. That is secret, that is private. Immediately after the ceremony, we opened our eyes slowly and there was nothing said. There was a lot of tears and rejoicing. But I will say that it did take some time to integrate. It was difficult to come back into our bodies. It was a happy feeling because we knew that the box had been opened. But the only thing that I think everyone in that whole group last night really noticed, that was collective, maybe not the only, but the biggest thing, was what we saw when we looked up. And I've seen sunsets around the world from, I've traveled through the Middle East and Egypt. I've seen sunsets, even here in Perth, they're incredible. But, I've been to some pretty, Greece and Italy and different places, and Chris has too. This wasn't just a pretty sunset. This was something which was out of this world, out of the hologram. Again, I won't go into too much detail as to what we saw. Maybe one day we'll choose to, but for now, I think you can pick up on what I'm saying. but it was something which couldn't be seen with your eyes prior to the magic box opening. I think Chris and I, we're still integrating. You know, it's only the day after. There's one other thing that we want to share with you, and there's a reason that Chris and I are here today. During the activation last night, we both had a moment which we did not know until later, but we both had a moment of death at a very real physical level. They were slightly different in how they happened. Again, we might elaborate at a later stage, but I won't for now. But it is now clear to us that it is the death of the toxic, destructive masculine body, which we as males were obviously still tapped into, despite us doing spiritual work and everything else. So it was something which both Chris and I had to agree with the earth and agree with Uluru that if we were no longer needed on earth, we were happy and willing. Not even happy and willing. We didn't really have the choice, but we were going to cease to be. Again, I won't go into too much description because honestly, words can't explain. It's difficult to explain. But there was certain, and this is during the deep, dark guts of the activation, there were certain sensations and very graphic descriptions of what happened to us at a physical level. I will say, particularly for those of you wondering if this happened to anyone else, males watching, particularly through the heart space,
Yes.
that were absolutely not of this earth and mind-blowing. We survived, we're here, but we feel extremely different today.
Yeah, I think it was, as Greg said, it's difficult to still be trying to process what had actually happened or occurred during that ceremony. And over time, I think we'll be able to find the right words to be able to express it more clearly. But I guess, as Greg's elaborating, that part of this message is also for the males that are watching, that if you did feel that energy thrust, particularly through your heart chakra, that's exactly what you were meant to feel. And we'll all have a different interpretation of what that meant and what you perceive that's going to do moving forward. But it was definitely literally an out-of-body experience. I can certainly use that word now, and not something I've usually used in the before. However, as Greg elaborated, it wasn't even about a question or an offering. It was an action of intent that needed to be done. So it was basically a situation where there was no thought process, no mind involved. It was a connection to the universe at that moment that was being asked of you. And when that situation arises, or you're in that particular realm, you just do it. And regardless of the circumstances that are going to occur later, which we've only just sort of started to realise. So hopefully we're trying to sort of understand a little bit of what we're trying to explain, because we're still trying to interpret it ourselves. But
there's one thing which I've noticed. I love action movies. I love watching my Indiana Jones. I love watching different movies that talk about the end of the world, whether that's, a world that has no electricity, a world where the sun isn't here anymore, a world where, a deadly physical ailment takes most people and then we have to fight to survive. So I've seen them all. I love these movies in the past. In particular, The Matrix is one of my favorites. What happened last night was almost as if the reality of every movie I've ever watched was happening in a very short amount of time to us in that moment. People talk about when you die, life flashing before your eyes. People talk about when you have an out-of-body experience, an astral projection, when you can go multi-dimensional. People talk about chatting to beings and entities. Everything happened that could possibly happen, but in a very, very short period of time. And I felt very strongly that this was it. This was the last chance. It was almost like a mission. That was the energy. It was a mission that the people who were there last night in the sacred circle needed to assist with. It wasn't our job to do it. We were conduits. Everyone on the planet was involved in something. But the beautiful thing is, and look, certain people have said that it was always going to open. I do agree. I think the reason that there was some fear yesterday in different groups, different portals, different people were saying, you know, it's been sabotaged, you know, there's dark forces trying to stop it from happening. I think there was a lot of very clever distraction and decoys done. However, they weren't done from a place of manipulation. They were done by a group of people who I won't mention, who simply did it through energetic ways, and that's the same ways that they've done everything for eons of time. So we're going to wrap it up because, look, there's more to be said, but we just wanted to tap in with you guys. We wanted to connect and say, from a sacred masculine perspective, it wasn't that we saved the day. I just want to be very, very clear on that. This is not a movie where the female was lying there and Uluru was upset and sad and she was dying and the earth was dying and the men had to come along and say, it's all right, we've got this, we're saving it. If that's the template you're used to in movies, I want you to take that and flip it completely upside down. Because what actually happened is men had to realize that we have no right to try and save, to fix. We are not here to put a big bravado on and try and, you know, protect. That's no longer our role. Our role is to be vulnerable. Our role is to release. Our role is to cry. Our role is to be connected to our inner feminine energy. And as such, both the masculine and feminine now in harmony will see the earth evolve and ascend into a state of vibrancy, peace, love, joy. I would say like never before, but it's happened before and it's going to happen again. But I just wanted to make that final point of clarification. Look, we'll be checking in with you again, but we have to go. Thank you so much again from our heart to yours. Thank you for your support. Thank you for watching. Our views yesterday, even on my meditation, was just unbelievable to have, you know, so many of you out there supporting us and loving us. So we're there, we support you, we love you, and we can feel the life force. Namaste, guys.